there are certain moments in the process where it's necessary to cut deep. Let's say the surgical process, if you call it that, for the healing. The healing, on occasion, requires that there be a deep cut, deep incision. The deep cut implies going into the ancestry, going into the river of blood. See? So in this case, we're talking about a psychic deep cut or wound. See? And this is part of the healing process, also part of the awakening process. See, cutting deep. See? So the, say, demonic state that human nature represents, and that is the state of ignorance, say, has to be cut into, it has to be called what it is. In order for awakeness to be effective, see, and the process of transcension to be penetrating enough to count in the moment, see, then this process must be liberated to go on freely as much as possible, so that awakened beings, so to speak, or as we would say, chosen ones, not people who chose to be what they're here to do in this sense, but those who are chosen to live as the blade, to live as the burn and so on, which are very few, in fact, in all the traditions, very few, are brought about to do this kind of devastating surgery. Because in the process, many are slain. They're slain because their voice is too loud, their heart is too strong, and so on and so forth. So then we have to talk about the purpose of life, which is to awaken. And awaken from what? Awaken from deep sleep, see? Ignorance and darkness. See? So this is the process, awakening from darkness into light. Now we have to use the terminology because this is all that there is to describe these conditions. See? Pain and suffering are, of course, non-existing to those who are in the transcendent state, but pain and suffering is the very condition of those identified with the material planes as such. And therefore, there's nothing else you can call it except what it is and what it appears to be in this case. Hence, the terminology that is used, the Kabbalistic approach, which is dealing with the name of the game, say, dealing with the spirits as they're showing up as obstructions, say, delusions, as deviations from the heart, as, let's say, separational programs, say, of avoiding what is fullness, say, avoiding what is happiness, avoiding what is trueness, and so on. In the comments. So what we're talking about here is the master as kata, the master as burn process, right? Not as teacher or guru as such. No, this is devastating. See, this is not anything that is comforting. See? And thus we would call it the swift blade. See? See, gone already. See? And thus the term gati, see, got you. Got you. Gati, got you. See? See? Head rolling already. See? And thus we have then the concept of the liberator. See? See? You awaken on the liberator. See? And this is exactly what it needs to be for peeps, because they need to be shocked out of or slain, of their sleep. They have to be slain, killed, see, at the sleep state. See, awakened as to the sleepness. See. In other words, the sleep has to be destroyed. See, the slain in sleep, the slain as sleep, so on, so forth. The sleepers must awake. Sleepers awake. And since this has to be done and practiced on the spot, for the sake of humanity, not for the sake of a few peeps, even though a few of those who can resonate properly with it, Everyone is responsible for this. So the idea then is to receive what it is. Let's say it's a command, let's say it's a practice, and try to put it into practice for yourself, see, by appropriately or resonantly awakening as quickly as possible because of the urgency of the situation in life. Everyone is responsible for helping everybody else awaken. See? And this is exactly what the waveform is. See? And so when we're speaking in terms of awakening as an enlightenment process, somebody has to take a stand for what it is, and that someone is everybody. In order for the system to be complete, everybody has to take a stand for mastery. So getting back to another point, we're talking about mastery which transcends cults. So the master as such, and I'm saying the free master, which is what I've written in terms of, but belongs to nobody because it belongs to everybody and is everybody. And as such belongs to no planet and no region on any planet whatsoever because it belongs to everything. It's an atomic realization. So it's not any more about India and Tibet than Brooklyn and the Bronx or Dorchester, see? Or Los Angeles. See? It's no more there than anywhere else. See? And this is the truth of mastery, mastership. Who the master is everyone and no one. In fact. And everything else that shows up in the name of that is basically some form of, let's say, honorable training ground to accomplish the task of awakening. Where they should work on you. They should bang you over the head to wake you up. Because the situation is that desperate, that urgent. See? It needs to be done. You need to be shaken out of your sleep. Come on.
Does catastrophe draw mastery to this planet?
Catastrophe?
Yeah.
Mastery is free. Mastery is the catastrophe, in a manner of speaking. It's already broken open. It's already beyond. See, the process of awakening is a greater miracle than a disaster, which is just evidence of change. Change it appears to be a disaster and a catastrophe because of our resistance to it, our fear of it. But when you consider the seed coming into the body and it starts to change, that's a disaster, it's a catastrophe. The fact that the body of the woman is expanding and ready to blow up shows you there's a potential disaster there. It's a catastrophe. It's like starburst, boom. So before she blows up, comes out. Because if it doesn't come out, there's going to be a blow up somewhere. Shows you. Nature is disaster, catastrophe. Creation means this disaster, catastrophe, and everything else. We have to see it, recognize it. It's the beauty of it. The madness of it. It's beauty. The master should be free enough to speak in these terms all the time. That's needed. But the opportunity doesn't arise for such beings, in a manner of speaking. But you can't be one. You have to be chosen as one. And that means beyond your preference and desires, something descends into you and then it takes over, in a manner of speaking. Spirit must inspire you to do that. You must be open and understand that the Spirit can do it by itself. It has nothing to do with your school. Your school at best can train you to maybe allow you for that to happen, but that can happen at any time to anybody, anywhere in the universe. Hear that. Know that's the law. That human knowledge is not the lord of such a process. No planet is where that process is locked up. See? It's not under any lock and key anywhere. It's everywhere. It's realization, enlightened, already liberated. Let it be known. Let it be sung out. Let this heart shout forth, sing to all beings. Let this heart fire sound continue to permeate all worlds as it is, and in the small and maybe very subtle way that it comes through this channel. Let it be that way. Let it be for the sake of enlightening and healing and liberating all beings. See? Yeah. May the blessing be you. Any other comments on the talk? The talk on Freemasonry. And what that can be for someone.
Would you say that the world reflects the fact that man is creating God in his own image? And that
Well, man is creating his own image. We can say God. Man doesn't know what God is. Let's assume that man knows God in some form or other to play like he knows whatever God is. The total. Man is not the total. Man doesn't have an idea of the total. When man goes beyond being man, then he might have an idea of the total. But he's got to get beyond being woman too. Because man is no better than a woman is no better than a man if that's what you call yourself. See? So you have to get out of the toilet and out of the bedroom to find out what it really is. In other words, you have to go to the mountaintop and then spring off of that into, let's say, deep space. See? Deep space, infinite space. Not 6 or 10 inches of space, or 12 inches, or 14 inches of space. We're talking about, not a little bit of space, huge, infinite space, gone. We're off the ruler, we're off the measuring sticks, off the clock into infinity. And that's the kind of, I guess you might say, ground that we're talking about, or that is, to speak about, in fact and in truth. This is the age of fire, as I mentioned 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 1982, in a talk with Subhuti, back in the day, or whoever was around during that time, that this was not the age of Aquarius. See? This is the age of fire. And so we say, well, why would he say that when there's no evidence to indicate that, right? And simply because I was burnt as a child, left in the sun to bake, and suffered burns that had me hospitalized. I was left in the sun. So my relationship to fire is direct. I've been burned by the sun, I've been initiated by the sun, so the word fire is inborn from accident. Being toasted and then being allergic to the sunlight. So I couldn't go in the sunlight. So I'm living fire, I'm the sun, a little son of the sun. Hot fire sound, toasted by the sun, by accident, for real. So now you understand the secret. One of my initiations, direct solar initiation, toasted by the sun. True initiation. Not by some lama or somebody babbling something over me, but which is not bad. It's good. It's good in a manner of speaking. All of these ritual initiations are powerful, but not like being toasted. That's for real. Say, oh, thank you. Okay. I'm not toasted yet. Sun, toasted. Smoking. For real. Say, whoa, there's a difference. Then I am the sun. Whereas you get these other initiations, then it's something you need to become. And you have to practice. You have to practice. You have to process it. And then get to the enlightenment, if you can, depending on yourself and your thinking, which stands in the way of such a process. Mm-hmm. So as the sun, how do you live as the sun? if not in heat, so to speak. Right? Follow the thought. See? Burn. The burn. Yes. Hey, you heard the talk of the burn? Direct from the sun. Right? Not ego. Direct from the sun. No ego involved. Right? Hot fire sound, no ego involved. Direct from the sun. Sunburn. See, this is Guru Sunburn. Sunborn. Yeah. Sunborn. Catastrophe. Yeah. Mishap. Childhood trauma.
So did mastery arise from or was imparted by that catastrophic condition?
No, it's related to it, however. See? Because the recognition of mastery was there before the mishap was birth, in this case. Being born to such an army was a great catastrophe and mishap. But it was intended, see? It was intended so that my purpose was before birth, and my psychic elders knew it. They said, no, this is a master, but it has to prove itself. And it did prove itself. In Satyanami's own words, he sounded like a master before he was 2. Not an exaggeration. Not that she was a musician to say it, no, but it was told to her by others. So she heard about it. She heard it from the musicians who saw me as a child, whatever. You know, this little machine. Which musical geniuses are little machines. They can't help but do what they do. A lot of people applaud machinery. Why should you applaud machinery? That's all they know to applaud is machinery. The process was birth, but the intelligence is beyond birth. And that's what we're talking about. So the destiny of a master is necessarily fraught with catastrophes that prove something is being broken. That means purified for the work of the heart coming through. The vessel must be broken. The heart must be broken open for the blood of spirit to flow through. There's no doubt about that, in some form or other. It could be direct like that, being pushed through the window, having the artery severed, say, nearly bleeding to death. It's a drama. There's no indulgence of it, but it's the way spirit works. See? To take the person out of the body and out of their line in order to give them visions of heaven or experiences of what it is, because a child doesn't have imagination like that. What child has an imagination like that? No, only something more profound can give you these visions of heaven when you're a child. And angels, I can think of angels, but there were these beings, angels, clearly, angels, all over the place. What kid is going to imagine that? No, it has to be there. It's not imagination. That comes from the world of the prophets and the geniuses. They see the angels, certain spiritually sensitive peeps. Not the kids, unless it's given to them. You have to understand it's given. It's given, then they like, as I was astonished. I was pulled into silence by it. I didn't know I was going to be an introvert because I was shocked when I was a child based upon what I saw and what I heard. So the function of the master is already given. It has something to do with the destiny of the universe, not just peeps and a planet. Because the mission then is intra-universal. It's not just physical universal. It's ultra-universal. That means trans-universal, transplanetary, because it's trans-conceptual. So it would have to be that. It can't be less. When it is infinitely more, it can't be less. It's incomprehensible. See, it's I God, incomprehensible, totally, radically incomprehensible. And that's where its beauty is and its magnificence is. So you can't put it in your pocket. You have to behold its wondrousness and just gasp. So the God that people can talk about and throw back as a poison ball to one another, nation to nation, brother to brother, is no God at all. It's a word. It's a mockery. It's a degradation of the real thing. It's a game played in parks and, gymnasiums amongst unenlightened peeps. Children in the dark, regardless of their status in the world. You are but mere children in the dark when your heart is not realized, when your heart is closed, when your heart is not broken open to true love, and compassion all beings and all creatures, not just the humans, peeps we see like ourselves, but all beings. Of course, you have to watch out for the predators, no doubt. This is smart heart, not stupid heart. Will you have animals in peace? Peaceful beings. Must be treated as equals, as peaceful beings. Comment.
So, as a master, were you sought out by other masters?
Remember, yes, but it is a word. Nobody is that, but it's a symbolic word. Or genius, symbolic word. There's no set quantity for these infinitudes. You have the relatively small genius, a mechanical person with his mechanical memory, so they get up there and do their little number like a wind-up doll. See, like the savants and their memories, they have no control over that. So they're machines. So you don't need to applaud them, you need to applaud their memory. You're not them. They have no choice but to be that. And that means the causal body. The causal body has sprung a leak, so to speak, and showing up as a feat of nature, a wonder. Knowing the past, knowing book knowledge is a wonder. You can just get an encyclopedia. You don't have to have somebody like spending his life being something that was written a long time ago. It's a waste of life, actually. You need to use that function, not for what you remember, but use the function of the encyclopedia of what you can't remember and should remember. Future, which is just as written as what's been heard. It's the unheard. That's the function of the masters, to give you access to what is unheard, unseen, unfelt, unknown. And that's coming. So like memory in reverse, no memory. Igone, incomprehensibly aware. Not some kind of memory performance. Okay. Now, in the scale of things, you have the physical body, you have the astral body, then you have the causal body, the memory body, number 3. And then you have the mental body, and you have the etheric body, you have the spirit body, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So where's memory, peeps? Oh. Down at the bottom of the list. Yes. Properly. It means it's at school. You're learning. Because it's not real knowledge. It's a track. You have masters that know more than that. So they know what is in all directions. And a little bit of memory here, a little bit of super memory here. Intelligence. All penetrating, all permeating. Intelligence. See? Beyond memory and time. No time. Eternal, timeless knowledge. Of space infinitely. So, peace then. Not BS. Information. True knowingness and being a light unto other beings, not a performer, a transformer. From ego to heartfulness.
Now, if a savant's memory could transform you into heartfulness, instead of having you thinking about all the garbage that's coming up, that's being spewed out in terms of dates and times and all the rest of this garbage that's known because somebody read it and remembered it, great. That's not going to liberate you. That's going to show you what his problem is, where he's stuck. It's not going to show you anything about what his liberation should be, except he should be liberated from what he's doing and being used by his body. The causal body. And that's relative to music too. Same problem. They are channels for the memory body, the causal body. That's it. They're not even geniuses. They're just memories at an extraordinary level. But there's nothing creative about it. They're not creating anything. It's like, well, I mean, in some cases you can see they might be able to improvise some. So they can improvise a little bit. Fine. It's within the realm of possibility, because all you got to do then is jingle jangle a few of your memories. Toss them around, juggle a few memories, and then you got jazz. What about the universe? What about enlightened transcension of mind completely? What about formlessness, let alone taking a few forms that are well programmed into your so-called causal body, see? And you can juggle a few of them around. So I remember this, I remember that. I remember a little salt and a little pepper. Now a little olive oil and a few green leaves. I create a salad. Jazz! Oh, I make salad for a living, musically speaking. Jazz. What are you cooking? Jazz. See? Jazz is just cooking. Using whatever you have in your cupboard, in your refrigerator, in your pantry. Jazz. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Of given things. Not very creative. Useful, no doubt. Not very creative as such. Not really creating much, but it may be a good meal for the moment. Now, if you can make business of it, then if you make a lot of money out of it, could be even more creative. That means for the person, it's life transformative. So if you can make money with it, keep your life going, it's creating some kind of peace, some kind of zone for you. Ultimately creative, we don't think so. Because it's not transforming your mind particularly. It's not helping you transcend anything. You're just using your machinery. So then you're giving credibility to your machinery. The created, not the creative. The created. Using the created, it's more created. Not necessarily creative. It's a paradox. What is the creative? It's transformative. The creative then is transforming the created into what it isn't. And not too many people want to do that. They don't want to be created into what they're not already. So the creative is no. Bad news. Because it's fire. Creative fire. The created is a material universe already, existing as it is, stable, able, functioning. Because there's all kinds of things that are co-functioning doesn't mean it's creative. It's created to work that way. It's not being creative. It just is that way. It's like food going down. You say, well, is this creative or it's being transformed? Right? Not really. You have no choice. It's just happening by itself. There's nothing being created about that. Or like a baby. A woman's not creating it. It's created. And she's created, and it's coming out as already created, differently. So, isn't that creative? Not necessarily. It's like, oh shucks, I thought I was getting into something, I'm realizing something, understanding something finally. Right, you can't understand it. That's what you can understand, so you have to sit well with that. There's nothing to understand, it's Igon, incomprehensibly, so. Comment.
So is the created equally and simultaneously the destroyed?
Could be. Can't say yes or no. It could be both. Creative, that's destruction, and then destroying destruction. Non-destruction. So it's destruction into non-destruction. It's the destruction of non-destruction. Let's put it that way. So it's the destruction of non-destruction. And then similarly, we say it's the creation of creation. And that's also a reasonable proposition.
You're saying that destruction is the creation of creation?
No, you said that.
Oh.
You just said that.
Would you agree with that?
Well, I agree that you said it. Doesn't mean that there's anything to agree with beyond that. So we're working with concepts that are not necessarily windows. There may be walls that are valid as walls. Conceptual range of, let's say, awareness could be useful, could be more opening. Could be helpful to see through, not just look at a wall. We have to see through it properly. But then that then reflects the responsibility you have as a let's say master in training or heart being in training to see through yourself programming, which is your responsibility to see through yourself BS well enough, deeply enough, profoundly enough, devastatingly enough. Say, no, I can't be this because this is BS. I can't be BS when I know I have a choice to be more than BS. I'm not going to be a cheat, a cheap cheat, see? Lazy, sleeping, sort of zombie, because I like it, because it's easy for me to just mope around, see? And sleep and sleep and sleep, and stay asleep while I'm looking like I'm awake. I'm actually sleeping. That's not enough. It's cheap. It's BS. It's a waste of life. It's a waste of grace. When we're here to reveal the space of grace, realize the space of grace, and bring this to other beings. And then, perhaps, there can be a difference. That you're not so much creating, but contributing to it. Enabling the light to have its way in this dimension, in this world at this time, which is desperately needed. And there are many beings working in this way, working on behalf of, let's say, this impulse. Many beings, relatively speaking. Let's say ultimately all beings are working towards this realization, because all beings are part of this realization already. Without this realization, there would be no beings. Because this is the heart of all beings, all sleeping beings, and thus all awakening beings, all beings, and thus all beings into no beings. Coming. So this is the understanding that begins the process of true burning, liberation, beyond your self-thought mind programs. The great equation. Great equation. No self, no thought, no mind equals no problems. For humans, no problems for any beings as such. Then it should be in proper resonance, so that we have a condition then of smart heart that knows enough to work with what it is, and appropriately enough to protect itself and other beings from themselves and your own self, if you still have that. Has it been said? Lavo, it's you. Your question is on prophecy. In earlier talks, it was indicated that in the case of true prophecy, it's the future speaking through the individual. So then we bring in different propositions relative to dimensions of time that are also sort of functional. So then the future is not the future. And just as the past is not the past. If you're stuck in the past, like in the case of savants and musical geniuses, so to speak, they're not what I would consider to be geniuses as such, but they are a type of genius that's working from memory. That means they're controlled by machinery. They have no control over relative to their hearing, and so on. They're forced to replay. But that's the curse of memory. That's not the gift of creativity. That's the curse of memory. And so when we're talking about that, yes, that time past is in the present and rules present. And similarly, you have the future, time coming, that can rule the present as well. And in this case, we have the prophets and the real creators who are bringing the present into. Masters can do that. Self-realized beings should be able to do that. So read from the future. And often they do. And they can make prophecies of certain things. So then it's a future reading. And in each case, each individual has a need for just a certain degree of what future. And that's what we're talking about. If we're talking about infinite future, it's incomprehensible. And usually these particular, let's say, traditions have prophecy relative to their own future. Hebrew biblical prophets relative to their own particular future. But that's the future speaking through them, and not them reading the future as much as some people would like to say or think. So they're open to the future, even as in the case of, let's say, Nostradamus, open to the future. So it's not that he went into the future, he opened to the future to come into him, in a sense. And the future was speaking. He wanted to be open to the future, so he could reveal that to the peeps. And because he was a healer, then it was more open to him as a channel than other peeps. His whole idea was be healer. So his heart was open to healing. As a doctor and as a healer, a person who sincerely, and a religious person sincerely wanted to heal peeps, then he knew that there was something to do with ignorance and something to do with, well, if we're not taking care of ourselves, that's a true prophet saying, if we don't clean up our act, and that's working in the field of mastery as well, we're going to be creating more problems for ourselves, and it's going to manifest into all kinds of holocaustal and catastrophic nonsense, right? Repercussions. We're talking about the repercussions of ignorance. See? And that's all that we're talking about here. The repercussions, the stupidity of science, the repercussions of it. The stupidity of genius, repercussions. Choking the earth, stupidity of genius, right? You geniuses out there, look at what you've done to the earth. Yeah, right. Look at what you've done to humanity. So you're not geniuses. You're working more on the demonic side. Right? False geniuses. So you're working for the material mode. So you're little demons. See? Selfishness. See? Everyone else is laying these particular praises upon you because you're geniuses. Why? Because you know a little bit more than they do, so you're a genius as such? Are you working for spirit? I don't think so. True genius is working for spirit, spirit alone. So the spiritual masters are the geniuses. If anybody, the spiritual masters are. They're the only ones who are working that way. And the rest of you technical geniuses out there, you know that for a fact. The spiritual is the source of the whole thing. Spiritual geniuses are the great geniuses. Everything else is becoming. Because it's self-building. So it's inferior. So when you go beyond yourself, you become superior. Yeah. Heartfulness, superior. Selfishness, inferior. That's the scale. Let it be known. Let it be so. See? It's said to be written. It's written to be learned. So it's to be understood. Put to rest. This earth is a school for children who are in the process of maturation, becoming more aware, developed, understanding of what it is to be a knowledgeable person, truly knowledgeable, not informed, pregnant, and stupid as a result, confused. Confused. So we can understand Einstein's apprehensions when it came to the atomic bomb. Yeah, naturally. We can understand Nikola Tesla's apprehensions when it came to atomic energy and say, what? No, it's crazy. Yeah. Even though he was dangerous in his own way. With his kind of intelligence that was basically interplanetary, no doubt, because he's so far ahead of everybody else. Yeah. So the civilization has to do in these peeps. Yeah. You have to sort of like forget about them. You have to put them away. You have to kill them because their light's too bright. Their word is too strong. Yeah. The prophets, the real prophets, that see the future as catastrophic because of being able to so simply and directly apprehend the ignorance that's allowed to run and rule the world, right? And those in power turn their back on it because they're getting paid for it. That to me is a shenaniganism and hooliganism at its worst. At the level of government, then there's no government. There's hypocrisy. There's make-believe government. It's true Hollywood at its worst. And so, change is on the way. Must be. Change is coming. This will not stand and rule for long. Everything has its time. And then it passes. Mm-hmm. It's already changing. And so as we are able to recognize the beauty, the presence and majesty of free mastery, free mastership, see, as revealed here, as stated here in very clear terms, it's more than just a concept, but consistent with the masters, the true masters of, let's say, the timeless realms, which are the realms of the masters, and mastership. Then we are able to see what the potential is, and that we are then obligated as heart beings to be true to that. See? So to honor that, to respect it, and not turn our backs to it, and then revert to our zombie manner, see? Our hideous or stupidness. Dog-headed, dog-minded dumbness, numbness of spirit, see? Numbness of heart. Heartlessness, basically. So prophecy, yes, is now, and the light of what true prophecy reveals is always present. It's all permeating, and we have to know that when you practice properly in releasing yourself from self-thought mind programs or world, God, or whatever your self-obsession is or what your preoccupation is, and enter the silence, the stream of original silence, then you're doing a great justice to all beings. Channeling that silence for that moment is graciousness. Breathing silence, or the hue, see, the hue of already gone, going back to peace, original peace, is graciousness. It's being the graces of space. That's how critically important it is. But nobody knows that. You're just hearing these words. See, they're going to the walls. But they're also coming from where? The heart itself, perhaps. That's the tragedy. It's coming from the heart, maybe just going to the walls. From the heart to the walls. It should be from the heart to the heart. Infinitely, all beings. May the blessing be you.